Hey everyone, I'm John Agroni, film editor for theyoungfolks.com, and I'm also the host of the Cinemaholics podcast. Today, I want to get into the film that will certainly be the one to beat as Best Picture at this year's Oscars. But is all the awards hype this movie is getting deserved? Well, it's exactly what I want to get into now. So Belfast is a tremendously personal film from Kenneth Branagh, who used to reliably make pretty good Shakespeare adaptations like Henry V, Much Ado About Nothing, Othello, Hamlet, so many. In the last decade, he's been sort of a blockbuster director for hire. He's done a lot of drastically different films, ranging from the first Thor movie to Disney's live-action remake of Cinderella. He also did the very snoozeworthy Murder on the Orient Express. I say snoozeworthy because I literally fell asleep during that one. And his previous film, the absolutely abysmal Artemis Fowl. With Belfast, though, Branagh triumphantly returns as the sharp, joyful filmmaker who used to make films for him, not really the studio, if that makes any sense. The film takes place in 1969 Belfast, Ireland, and though it is presented in black and white, the atmosphere and the performances, they couldn't be more lively and colorful. We mainly follow a young boy named Buddy, played quite confidently by the newcomer actor Jude Hill, who is apparently an amalgamation of childhood experiences, a little bit of Branagh's own experiences mixed in with other people who grew up there, kids that he knew from the neighborhood in Belfast. The movie begins by showing us this tight-knit, community-oriented environment that Branagh fondly remembers, where everyone knows each other's name. It's like a village in the sense that the neighbors are helping to raise and look out for all the kids, even though they're not technically their own kids. Kind of how society used to do things. Similar to Last Night in Soho, Branagh quickly breaks this nostalgic facade apart, at least for a few pretty intense scenes very early on. And this is when we see the Belfast riots, in which the Catholics and the Protestants of this area are at bloody war with one another over who gets to live in which neighborhood and what to do about all of this religious discrimination that's happening with these people. This is a real life event that I had actually never heard of until I saw this film, but it actually captures the spirit, I think, of what was going on quite well, while always filtering it through the perspective of Buddy. We see Buddy struggling to wrap his head around how imperfect Belfast is, despite his childlike love of these people and where he comes from, which, includes his schoolyard crush, in which he amusingly tries to boost his grades for the chance to get assigned a seat next to her based on how the teacher groups students by their aptitude. And there's also Buddy's grandparents, who really steal the heart of this movie right from under you. Ciarán Hinds plays Buddy's gregarious grandfather. He's always working on some leather saddle or something. He's offering sage advice about girls and getting on with the other kids. And Dame Judi Dench, she plays this endlessly quippy grandmother who you can really tell is the only person his grandfather can even try to match wits with. But the real standout actors here are Buddy's parents, who probably qualify as lead actors in what is really an ensemble piece. Katrina Balfe plays his tremendously impacting mother, in that she's clearly flawed because she's a human being, but her desperation comes from how deeply she loves her two sons and will move heaven and earth to do right by them, even if that means hiding Buddy, for example, when the rent collector comes so they can have enough money for Christmas gifts. And she often trades barbs with Buddy's father, played by Jamie Dornan, who spends chunks of the film always away from the family, trying to set up a new life for them elsewhere, far from the chaotic uncertainty of Belfast. And that's where you can really feel where Branagh is coming from with this immigrant story movie, but without the part where they're immigrants. He wants you to feel empathy for not just the people who leave their place of origin, wherever that might be, in search of a better life, wherever that may be, but also the people who stay and the people we lose along the way. And it's shot in black and white, or at least it's presented in black and white, and it's often bleak enough to match that color palette. But the film's true surprises are in how bombastic and energetic and charming it really is. It's funny all the way through. I found it very humorous, and there's a heart-pounding song number late in this movie that it really plucks the heartstrings almost as well as John Carney's Sing Street. And the real pleasure here is how you grow to love Belfast deeply, almost as much as this young boy does, and almost as much as Branagh does by extension. It's a nice extra touch to that effect in the way that Buddy adores going to see films. It's not very subtle, and these are among the only few times we see any color in the movie, as if to emphasize how mind-opening films can be for a child at that age when experiencing a movie for the first time in a theater, because Buddy also watches movies at home. He watches Westerns, and that's fun too, seeing what's like seeing a kid watch High Noon for the first time. But of course, when he watches these Westerns, those are still in black and white, and they kind of represent the past. And yeah, you can kind of play around with the idea of like, you need to watch movies in the theater. That's really where the magic happens. I'm sure Branagh is on that wavelength. So yeah, the film is full of seemingly unnecessary tricks of creativity like that, where setting such a film, a lovely film, in black and white means you can save the colorful moments, literally, for when something truly imaginative is happening on screen. But it also marks the film's shortcomings in a way, which is to say that it all does feel a little slight and seemingly unnecessary. All the technicals are purely enjoyable, especially Van Morrison's music, which is also tremendously personal, considering Morrison, who did the music for this film, he's also a native of Belfast and has that connection. It really is the equivalent of seeing a group of friends putting on a fascinating show about a time and a place that most people don't know about or have maybe forgotten. You can certainly appreciate their enthusiasm for it and get lost in the joy of what they want to say with their story. But the problem is that you might also get a little lost in a bad way, because the script really does meander quite a bit, and you can tell it's on purpose, because on the plus side, you do get a more realistic, well-rounded picture of what life is like as a child, any child, where there's more than just one major life event happening at once, and things switch back and forth at random because life is like that. Most of the time in movies, we tend to have really focused stories where it just seems like this one thing going on is like the only thing that's going on. Belfast isn't like that, and I'm kind of impressed with the commitment to that, because it's hard to make a movie that's all over the place like this without it feeling really, really messy. And the film doesn't feel messy. It just feels a little wandering at times. I think a more pronounced through-line narrative might have pushed this to the next level for me. I'm not sure. Particularly when the script does throw out these great lines that are kind of random and out of context. Like when Hines tells Buddy, it's a great line, if they can't understand you, in reference to people of a different accent he may encounter outside of Ireland. If they can't understand you, then they're not listening. It's a great line, and it has muscle on its own, but it could have been stronger if more of the film had been building up to these nuggets of wisdom. Still, Belfast is a thoroughly satisfying time at the cinema. It's only a brisk 97 minutes, and the individual pieces of brilliance, I would argue, disconnected as they can be at times, are worth discovering if you want to feel like a kid again, or feel like a different kind of kid altogether. Belfast opens in the US and the UK. It's going to be in theaters this weekend, and yeah, you should check it out. I don't think it's my, big movie of the year. People are saying it's probably going to win Best Picture. It has all the data behind it, and yeah, sure, I can see why people like it. It's very lovely. It's very nice. Not my personal favorite, but I'm glad I saw it. And that's all I've got for you all this time. I'm going to be going on a little bit of a break this week because, well, I've got a little bit of a vacation coming up. So I don't have any reviews coming out for a while. I am going to be seeing Encanto, the new Disney animated film, actually tomorrow evening. So I'm going to be able to watch that movie and then have a lot of time to think about it before I do any sort of review of it. But hey, if there's anything that I haven't checked out or talked about here that you are interested in, you're curious what I think about it, as always, send me your recommendations. You can do it in the comments. You can also email me through the channel, and I'll be sure to get to you as soon as I can. All right, that's it for me, you all. See you next time, or in a week or so.